I am not watching Pokemon.
I'm not saying we should.
Then why are you dressed like Pikachu?
Hallelujah! Normally I dress for the show we're reviewing, but I don't want to be naked, and everyone in Kill la Kill is naked, or wearing little tiny underwears. So I thought, if I can't dress appropriately, then I should wear whatever seems fun. So behold my 80s Pikachu Electric Boogaloo!
Go. Change.
Anime Indecision. Wow. Yeah, SAO Season 2 is still a hard sit.
Yeah, it still just never quite meets the standards you hope for.
I think we need something more energetic, more fast-paced, maybe a little silly. Kill la Kill!
Kill la Kill is definitely energetic, but I can't even tell sometimes whether it's trying to be one of those sort of exploitative booty shot shows or to spoof them.
Well, it's definitely a fine line. It's kind of hard to spoof naked people without showing some naked people. But part of its measure of success is whether or not it's actually funny. And I think Kill la Kill can be really funny.
There are a lot of funny parts, but I watched so far through that show and I still just couldn't decide whether I liked it or not. Though, I admit, I did keep watching.
Kill la Kill is the story of Ryuko Matoi. And one day she comes home and finds her dad dead. And not only is he dead, but he's dead with a rather distinctive blade in his belly.
That would stand out.
It looks like half of a pair of scissors. So she takes the blade as her own weapon and looks to find the woman who killed her father. In her search, Ryuko comes to Hanoshi Academy, and when she sees Satsuki, the student council president, and when she sees that spark of recognition, she challenges her to a battle. Unfortunately, Hanoshi Academy has magical, super-powered uniforms.
Of course.
And she beats the shit out of Ryuko. Well, luckily Ryuko finds her own special uniform in the form of Senketsu, a blood-drinking god uniform. Depends on your subtitles. And she uses it to challenge the academy. This academy is really interesting. How well you are doing at the academy, in terms of your social standing more than your scholarly standing, determines what kind of quality of life your family has and determines how powerful a uniform you get. So Ryuko has a long uphill battle to even try and get to talk to Satsuki.
Yeah, Satsuki, although she's nominally the student council president, she really rules the school in the most literal sense. She's a tyrant. Everyone does what she says. She rules not just the school, but the whole town where all the students and their families live. And what she wants, other than to dominate everyone, it's pretty hard to say.
It really helps that Satsuki's mom owns, like, one of the biggest corporations in the world and owns the city and owns the school.
Yeah, so here's the problem when you try and start describing the series. That's where we start out, and all those things do pretty much hold true, but it changes every episode, or at least every couple episodes. The focus, every time you think you know where it's going, it does go someplace different, which is a plus.
For me, that's definitely a bonus point. Because there's some shows, especially like long shonen series, where you get a few episodes in and then you'll discover, okay, this is what every episode is going to be like. And 3 or 4 different times in the show, I thought, okay, this is what all the episodes are going to be like for a little while. And it was never true. This show is just, it's fast, fast, fast. It doesn't take its time at all.
I mean, early on, you could try and describe it as a Monster of the Week type show in that you're usually going to have Ryoko fighting with some president of a sports club at the school who has a superpowered uniform, level 2. And, you know, that seems like what's going on, but even the parts that do fit that description, which is a fair chunk of the first half of the series, it still isn't like that. Every episode is different. Some of them are insane. Some of them are insanely stupid, frankly.
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid things going on in this show, but really that's part of its charm. And before you start, like, counting the show out, it's not one of those, like, really painful stupids. Like, it's not like you just want to smack every character and get them to stop being idiots. It's not like that kind of stupid.
No, that's fair. There's nobody who sits on screen and just acts in a way that, like, you're, oh God, why don't you say it? Or stop being an idiot. Or it's not like that. It's just the insanity of the whole thing.
For example, Ryuko's best friend, Meiko, I expected to hate her. Like literally the first, 2 episodes, I was like, this is gonna get so old. She's so annoying. I've seen this dumb character before. And she keeps putting new spins on there. And it's less that she's dumb and more that she's just, seeing the world through some weird filter.
And yeah, she's not so much dumb as she sort of sees herself as an underachiever. And she's fine with that. And it turns out that while you think that's going to be horrible, somehow it works for her, where you're just like, okay, she's not worried about things like that. She just wants to be a good friend, and she's happy to have a friend.
And what I appreciate about her is she works really hard to try and understand Ryuko. This relationship is very important to her. And even when something happens, like she sees Ryuko do something, and she thinks that's Ryuko's self-expression, she tries to accept it, and she tries to come to understand it. Like, her reaction to her friend doing something weird isn't, oh my God, what are you doing? It's, okay, this is a thing my friend likes. I respect that. I don't understand, but I want to find out about it.
Which is not necessarily a normal reaction, but it's a very sort of mature, in a way, reaction to, say, your best friend talking to her school uniform all the time.
Or your best friend barely wearing any clothes.
While she fights people and sends them flying.
Believe me, barely wearing any clothes is very much a running theme in this show.
Yeah, usually the nakeder they get, the more powerful they get.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not one of those panty shows.
Sometimes you check out a show, you don't know what it is going in. You start watching the first episode, within 2 minutes you've seen a certain number of crotch shots where you say, okay, this is a crotch shot show. I honestly don't care what else is going on. There's no way they're going to redeem themselves.
A lot of those panty shot shows sound good just from the description, because the description doesn't say, and you're going to see a crotch every 2 minutes.
Clearly, Kill La Kill is trying to parody those sorts of shows. You have mostly naked female protagonists on screen a lot of the time, but they are trying to parody it, and they don't shy away from showing some degree of nudity for the male characters as well. When Ryuko wins a fight, whether she's fighting a man or a woman,
whether they're skinny or chubby,
it doesn't matter. She is going to cut their uniform into shreds, and they're going to go spinning off totally butt naked.
A lot of, star positions. Naked.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really appreciate. This show is almost trying to desensitize you to nudity.
It does desensitize you, and it becomes, first off, normalized and a little bit funny, and you start to realize that it doesn't matter what people are wearing, even though in a certain sense the show is totally about what people are wearing.
Oh God. Yeah. The thing is, okay, they kind of have an explanation for why people are so naked. I know that it's probably a backwards,
No, but that's a fair point too, because that's why I kept watching partially, especially as it goes on further and further. It's very difficult to describe a show that in many ways it is intentionally stupid. But they've decided where they're going to have internal consistency, and they do. They have internal consistency. They have in-universe reasons for things which, for a long time, make no sense. And yeah, like you say, their explanations are somewhat backwards, justifying it. But when you've built your world up in that way, where obviously they knew this from the beginning and that was part of the plan, somehow you get this point where they're doing absolutely ridiculous things. Large areas of land may get destroyed, but in these other ways that are more sort of plot relevant almost, they're justifying some of the silly things, and it all just comes together reasonably well.
One thing you said really stuck with me, which was the idea that it seems really dumb on the surface, but there's stuff going on underneath. This show actually has a surprising amount of Japanese culture and Japanese themes in it, which seems really strange for a show where everyone's running around naked. But, I didn't even have to see the show. If you told me there were a whole bunch of threads in this show, I could have told you they were red. Because the red thread of fate is a really strong theme in Japanese works and Japanese cultures. You see it all the time, especially in anime opening themes. You'll see someone like tied up in red ribbon and red string. I guess I don't have a very strong point about the relation to Japanese culture. I'm not a Japanese person. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I just found it really interesting that I was seeing those themes that I've seen in serious shows in this silly show.
Yeah, it does make the show richer that they have that in mind, that they have the idea like, okay, we have a plot, we have themes that we want to push. And then we're going to have a show where this schoolgirl has a very odd relationship with the talking stripper suit that she wears.
Yeah. Her magical girl costume, Senketsu, if we can call it a magical girl costume when it's a stripper outfit, is a character in the show. He, she, it has a male voice. He talks to her. She talks to him. They almost have a codependent relationship because he needs her. He can't even be awake without her blood and her feeding him.
Even as he grows stronger, she's really the only person he can talk to. They form a very strong partnership in combat, obviously, but even though she has this great friend, Mako, he is really her confidant. She's the one that she can talk to about anything.
Well, it is kind of hard to talk to Mako sometimes.
Yeah. And somehow this relationship, if you can call it that, between a girl who's probably too young to be dressed like that and this extremely tight-fitting, bizarre piece of quasi-magical clothing, there's something about it that is actually kind of powerful by the end.
Actually, one of the things that really kept me going in this show was all the friendships. There are a lot of really interesting characters. They're not as one-dimensional as you expect from such a silly show.
You're not going to see a whole lot of character arcs necessarily, but like we mentioned in that Cowboy Bebop review, it's not that the characters, the side characters particularly, have arcs necessarily, but there is enough more to them that the series can take some time and you learn about them, and then you start to appreciate what they stand for or what they believe in or just how they act.
Especially the four divas, like the Elite Four of the school. You see through flashbacks how they came to be where they are.
Yeah.
They are fleshed out like that.
At the beginning, they're set up like these are the stereotypical four dragons, the four minions of Lady Satsuki, but you sort of learn over the series that, well, they're still the four minions of Lady Satsuki, but they have their reasons.
We see why they trust her, why they are loyal to her, and we kind of see, like, most of them have one aspect that they're really good at. Like, one of them is really good at defense, one of them is really good at offense, one of them is really good at coordination. And you kind of see how they develop those traits in themselves as well. But the friendships in this show are really strong. The friendship between Mako and Ryuko, these are characters who seem like they shouldn't get along.
Yeah.
You have, like, this crazy ditzy girl and this, like, serious, badass, hot-tempered girl, and somehow they get along perfectly fine. And one of the nice things is, for a show where everyone is naked all the time, there's, like, no romance, no sex, no kissing.
It's odd, and I wouldn't normally say that no romance is necessarily a plus. It does depend on a show, but in the context where the show is so much about that stuff, the fact that there's no real sexuality in it, it kind of helps to desensitize it from that. By the end, you're not going to look at these characters, despite the way they're dressed, you're not going to look at them as sex objects.
I mean, I love romance. Don't get me wrong. I watch romance shows where that's the only point of the show. But for me, sometimes it gets really disappointing where every time you see a female lead in an action show, they have like a forced romantic interest, there's a guy, maybe there's not even a reason why she likes him, it's just because he's the guy. And I really appreciate that didn't happen in this show.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of female characters.
There are a lot of female characters who have lines, who have personalities, who have motivations. It's really not just that, let's have a whole bunch of sexy ladies fight. Although they're parodying that, so there is some degree of that.
But the thing is, they managed to have a ton of sexy ladies without it feeling harem-y or without it feeling like they're just trying to make a sexy calendar for you. Like, that's not really how the characters are portrayed. And a lot of them, their non-fighting clothes are not so sexualized or not so crazy.
No, really. And there's, even when they're transforming or whatever into some ridiculously skimpy thing, it's more that they have no shame generally because that's what they have to do for the power. It's not exhibitionist. It's not sexualized.
It's represented as very a pure thing in the show. To be so driven by your goal that you're willing to accept that this is what it takes.
I will do anything if this is what it takes to make my dreams come true.
Now, this is one of those shows that I really think your mileage is going to vary. And I think this is the kind of one where you might watch it and you might love it, and you might watch it and you might hate it.
I recommend it to you, and I recommend it to some other people. Everyone should watch the first episode anyway, because even if you don't like it, it's going to be kind of hilarious as a one-off thing. It's well worth your 20 minutes for the non-stop assault on your face.
I would go a little farther. I would say watch the first 3 episodes. They almost worked like a movie, and it really sets up the rest of the show. And I think if you're not into it by then, you're probably just not going to be into it.
And if it turns out that you want to see more of it, there's a whole series, and it's really not as stupid as it might originally appear. You know what? Why don't we just throw it on? There is a lot of craziness that's worth watching again.
Awesome. I love it when you agree with me.